Welcome in, everybody. We are on day 2 of the NFL draft in Cleveland, but reporting from our various locations in California. It's Lina, Washington, Sean Cunningham, and our friend, Locked On 49ers podcast host, Brian Peacock. And we have a lot to unpack after just the one pick that was made in the first round, obviously, last night. Trey Lance is the guy that Kyle Shanahan allegedly wanted all along, going back to January, is what we've been led to believe. I know we got your initial reaction last night, Brian, but now that you had some time to marinate with this information that we got from that post-draft press conference with GM John Lynch and head coach Kyle Shanahan, of course, how are you feeling about this pick and everything that led up to this dramatic moment and kind of a moment of pride, I think, for these two guys who knew all along that this was their guy?
Yeah, and knowing that there's no leaks in their building, although you can't have leaks in your building if nobody knows. Not only did the press and all the media members who really had a feeling it was Mac Jones not know what the pick was, there were only 2 people, and they told the owner, Jed York, like Wednesday, who the pick was going to be. Nobody, assistant coaches, nobody knew. So that's why the leak couldn't get out there. That's why nobody knew what was going on. And Kyle Shanahan said that, hey, he wasn't going to change the false narrative that it was Mac Jones. He was just going to let people run with that because it didn't help them at all if he went out and fixed that rumor. So Trey Lance, what a crazy day too, because fans were really anti-Mac Jones for the Niners, even though it seemed like that's the direction that the pick was going. Then there was the Aaron Rodgers stuff that happened in the day leading up, and 49ers fans were going to lose their minds draft day. Like, that was tough. And then finally everything settled down. They were on the clock. Aaron Rodgers wasn't going to happen. Everyone realized that. And then it came down to, okay, who's going to be the pick? And Trey Lance was the name. And I think there was a big exhale. I think everyone was excited about it because they realized they swung for the fences, at least on this pick. And there's a huge amount of upside with Trey Lance. And most 49ers fans are super excited now that Trey Lance is the guy. And the exciting part for me is to see how this all comes together with Jimmy Garoppolo, how long it takes for Trey Lance to develop and be ready to play for Kyle Shanahan, because he's a rare prospect physically because of his 6'4", 226-pound stature, big arm, super athletic player. But he's also rare in that there's no comparison. There's no track record. There is 0 names on the list of players who are 20 years old, played 1 year of 1AA football, 2 years ago, that were successful or even in the NFL at all, let alone a first-round pick, let alone a top 3 pick that they traded up 3 picks to get. So this is unprecedented. This I don't know how this is going to turn out. There's a wild range of outcomes for Trey Lance as a quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. But one thing is there's a ton of excitement, and I think that's clear. A ton of excitement, and everybody knows what's going to happen. It's going to be a fun ride from here on out.
When we were talking about it just a few days ago, I mean, I told you who I felt like a lot of 49ers fans where, I wasn't thrilled about Mac Jones. I kind of talked myself a little bit into it. I still didn't think it was going to go that way. In fact, we were talking about it. I said, I expect chaos. I expected trade. That didn't happen. But it kind of, I respect John Lynch for several times in that press conference yesterday mentioning the fact that, hey, a former MVP, last year's MVP became available. Of course we looked at it. Of course we had conversations about it. I respected I felt about 90% of that press conference was completely honest, even with the involvement of Mike Shanahan, who Kyle has been a little reluctant and hesitant to talk about in the past. I felt he was so much more open about that this year. But seeing Kyle get his guy, I truly believe this is the one that they wanted. I know he threw there's 3 guys we like, there's 5 guys we like, and I think they were prepared for a bunch of different scenarios. But at the end of the day, when you look at, as we talked yesterday, Brian, the upside with this kid, the arm strength, which, I know people thought, Colin Kaepernick had a rocket arm, but my goodness, you mix in the accuracy and there's a lot to be excited about. I mean, only 1 interception at North Dakota State, which just leaps off the page at you. I mean, I know people talked about the accuracy with Mac Jones, and he's playing with an NFL type team in college, and they're about to go to the NFL. North Dakota State didn't have those same athletes, and here he is only throwing 1 interception all year in his entire time with the Bison.
Yeah, the 28-0 touchdown ratio in 2019 is pretty amazing, and it's a record, and there's a reason it's a record because it doesn't happen much. And he did get lucky a few times watching some of his games. There was a couple balls that did hit defenders' hands, and they didn't catch him. And he did miss some balls too, so I think he can get much better even than you would think he could with a 28-0 ratio with touchdowns to interceptions. But yeah, like you mentioned, the sky's the limit, and I agree with you. They were super honest, but they didn't have to lie anymore. And I think you could tell there was a weight lifted off their shoulders in that post-draft press conference with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. And I don't know if it was like a Daniel Day-Lewis type performance on the Monday before that press conference with Kyle Shanahan, or he just really hadn't slept because they're putting so much work in. But that was what really made me think, oh, this is going to go Mac Jones because of the way he was acting. And so I don't know if it was an acting job by him or he was just exhausted because of the whole process, but you could tell they were renewed and there was a weight lifted off their shoulders. And yeah, that was an interesting note in the press conference about Mike Shanahan. And I think Kyle probably doesn't love being under the shadow of his father. I'm sure he was for so long that he wants to keep that, he wants to keep separate from Mike Shanahan, and he loves his dad and his dad's around a lot, but he wants people to know this is his show. He's not, riding his dad's coattails anymore. And his dad's not the one that's making evaluations and telling him who to draft. He's the guy that's in charge and it's not his dad. His dad's just around and maybe they ask him some questions a time or two. But it was a really interesting day. And there was a wrinkle. You were right. There was a big wrinkle, and it was that Aaron Rodgers stuff. And I have appreciated the honesty from Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. And that's why I was surprised from Monday's press conference of the acting job, maybe by Kyle Shanahan a little bit, because they've always been so honest. And when an MVP caliber player is available, you have to at least make some calls. And I think that's one thing that's been clear with this regime is John Lynch especially is so competitive. And they're so aggressive together, and they're going to turn over every rock they can. They're going to call every team in the draft to find out where they can trade up, where they can trade down, who's available, who costs what, if people want to trade for their players as well. And if a great player is available, they're going to make a call on it. And I wonder if maybe the decision to potentially trade for a veteran quarterback led to them realizing, well, we're willing to give up a whole bunch of draft picks. Maybe we should just look to the draft and start the clock over with a rookie, find our own player and mold them. And I think that's kind of what got the ball rolling for a massive trade up and in the end led to Trey Lance.
Yeah, you never know what is going to happen on a day-to-day basis. Like Kyle said, we might not be alive. We didn't know that Aaron Rodgers would come up to be vocal, I guess, about his displeasure in Green Bay just hours before his, for lack of a better term, hometown team as a Northern California squad would be looking for a quarterback. But now we look ahead to this weekend and, of course, what moves, how the team moves forward with Jimmy Garoppolo. And I did appreciate their natural, visceral reactions, I think, in that press conference yesterday. I mean, just how happy it seemed that John Lynch was that the timeline that the media thought was from March until now was really from January until now when this process began. Just the way that they were able to keep Trey Lance under wraps in terms of their peak interest. And now they have Jimmy Garoppolo, who they've clearly expressed that they would be very disappointed to not see him on Sunday, is exactly what Kyle Shanahan said. They are looking to have him on board and at least have Trey Lance there to learn under Jimmy. But as we've seen, a lot can happen game to game, week to week, and you need somebody under center who is able to win you some games. And of course, with Jimmy G missing significant time in recent seasons, that's been a challenge for Kyle Shanahan in his tenure at San Francisco. And of course, you look to a scapegoat, you look to all of these excuses. When it comes down to it, you got to win games. So if Trey Lance is going to win you some games, you got to put him out there. But what are you anticipating in terms of Jimmy Garoppolo's involvement, his even demeanor moving forward with this new talent coming in?
Yeah, and apparently Jimmy Garoppolo already reached out to Trey Lance and got his phone number, and he's being a good soldier in all this. And I really wouldn't expect anything else. He's a high character guy, and I think that's important to the team. And I think that was an important aspect of Trey Lance being a high character player. And so we'll see if they can work together and see even if they're on the field together for some snaps in 2021. But I wouldn't expect Trey Lance, because of his relative inexperience and the level he played and being so long since he's been on the field, be ready to play early. If he's ready to play in week one, that is a fantastic sign for the 49ers and means they absolutely made the right pick. But I do think he needs to get on the field at some point, because the one thing that he lacks on his resume is playing time. And so I don't know if it helps him that much to not play more, right? And if you're talking about 2022, September, next year, if he sits out his entire rookie season, then he will have played one game in 2.5 years, dating back to December of 2019. I think that's just too long. He needs to get on the field. He needs as many reps as he possibly can. So I'd like to see him on the field for the 49ers in 2021. I think that'd be good for his development. I don't think that'll be week one. And I think the 49ers believe they have a great team that can compete for a Super Bowl. and expect to win early. So I think that's why Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the starter in week 1. I think that's why Jimmy Garoppolo won't get traded this weekend. And I don't think anybody's going to pony up anything for Jimmy G anyway. And most teams, it seems like, have pretty much figured out their quarterback spot. So I don't think there's a good landing spot for Jimmy Garoppolo anyway. So they would have to be blown away by an offer. I don't think they're going to get that offer this weekend. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be around and be the starter in week 1 for the 49ers. And the big question will be, when do they work the rookie in? And as Kyle Shanahan said, he won't hesitate to put him out there when he's ready.
And it's crazy you mentioned that, because I was just thinking about that. I know as a 49ers fan growing up, I'm totally in the minority, because I know there's so many people ready to move on from Jimmy G. And I'm the guy that kind of still champions him and says, look, I know that fourth quarter in the Super Bowl stands out, and I know he's got his blemishes, and I know he's had buzzard luck with injuries. But I still like what I see. Like, I still think the guy is a more than serviceable starting quarterback. I think the Niners are lucky to have him. I think the Niners are lucky to have him in this position with Trey Lance, who could take a couple years to get there, to get to what we're looking for. And he's signed through 2022. I think it's a really good situation. He's got the respect of Shanahan. And, like Kyle said yesterday at that at that press conference, he says, I'd be disappointed if we don't have him there on Sunday. Now, granted, if you're moving him, I hope you're getting something back, because as I think we all agree, Trey can't just step in and be your starting quarterback day one coming. But I truly believe that they're lucky to have someone like Jimmy G. And if the market isn't there, all the more better. I mean, you've got a capable, serviceable backup from Modesto who just signed, and Nate Sudfeld. So, I mean, they've got some depth there, and I'm kind of interested to see what it looks like. And, you talked to me yesterday, and I know you just alluded to it a minute ago, getting Trey Lance on the field, much like that Taysom Hill role with the Saints, it kind of scares me a little as someone who I just want to see this kid marinate for a year and just do what he does. But that is very an interesting possibility with this team.
Right. And I think that's part of the reason why, even if Jimmy Garoppolo, let's say, unfortunately gets hurt again early in the season and Trey Lance is forced into action, I think there's a relatively high floor, even though he hasn't played a lot, just because of his athleticism and his arm. I think Kyle Shanahan would be able to put together a scheme that would be something that defenses would have to contend with, especially in the run game. And I think having that athletic quarterback just adds, as Kyle Shanahan puts it, it makes it, instead of 10 on 11, it makes it 11 on 11. So they have to account for the quarterback being able to run on every play. So that will help the numbers game as far as the run game, and not only help the run game when the quarterback's running it, but help the run game when he's handing it off still. So I think that's interesting that they could incorporate some of those elements into the offense with Trey Lance, either now or in the future. When you mentioned Jimmy Garoppolo too, that was one of the things that shocked me the most about the trade up to number 3, because what was the urgency? Because Jimmy Garoppolo is good. Jimmy Garoppolo is a starting caliber quarterback. I didn't see the push-pull factors of going all the way up to number 3 when you have a quarterback that has already led you to a Super Bowl that's really good. Maybe you want to get better at that, but I didn't see the urgency of going up all the way to number 3 like the 49ers did. And so in that way, it sort of told me, maybe they are just going to drop Jimmy Garoppolo. But then when you step back and you look at it, you see the Trey Lance pick. Okay, it's like, all right, you got the veteran, you got the young guy. It's only 20 years old. I mean, he couldn't even celebrate with the beer after the draft last night, right? And so, although he seems like the type of guy that doesn't even drink. Like he's in too good a shape. And although I did see his Chipotle burrito bowl, which looked pretty good. It was a solid choice there. So it's score
very
one.
solid. And to that point, Kyle Shanahan calls him the CEO. I mean, this guy's just such a heady individual, very, very intellectual. I mean, there's a lot to like here.
I was a mess when I was 20 years old. I don't know about you guys. I mean, there's no way I was CEO of my own life, let alone an entire organization or a football team. So
well, I wasn't, but Lina, oh my goodness.
She's been the CEO for a while.
I've been the boss since I was in college. Let's be honest. I ran things in the house and elsewhere. But yeah, he's got a lot of expectations, I think, of course, with the pick and just the system that he's going into, what we've seen from him, obviously a high upside. And now that he's getting to work with Kyle Shanahan and he's got his guy, I'm sure that the possibilities are going to be endless for Trey Lance. And we certainly can't wait to see him out there on the field. But the Niners do still have a couple selections left in each round. We got the second and third coming up today. What are some maybe the omissions in terms of talent that you're looking for this team?
Yeah, they have a ton of picks. They have 8 picks left. And if I had to guess, the 49ers probably don't believe that 9 draft picks are going to make the roster. So I think there's potential for some more movement, especially with the big gap they have here on day 2 between rounds 2 and round 3. They have that compensatory pick for losing Robert Saleh. way at the end of round 3 at pick 102, and they're picking early in round 2 at 43. So that's nearly 2 full rounds. It's 60 picks that I could really see them closing that gap and maybe using one of their extra 5th round picks or one of their extra day 3 picks to move up and close that gap a little bit and find a player. I think cornerback is a massive need. There's a Tyson Campbell out of Georgia. There is Asante Samuel Jr. It makes me feel old. I mean, Trey Lance is born in the year 2000. He's 20 years old being drafted. Asante Samuel, I remember seeing him play, and his son now is going to join the NFL. It's crazy, but I think those would be two good picks for the 49ers at corner in the 2nd round. There's a ton of offensive linemen, interior guys, backup Alex Mack at center and maybe eventually take over for him, but then in the meantime compete at right guard to potentially be a starter there. Wide receivers, they have a number of bodies at wide receiver, but nobody they can really count on beyond last year's first rounder and Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, who was injured a lot last year, and there's a lot of question marks besides that. So that could just be a position they throw more numbers at. They can get an outside type wide receiver, a more downfield threat, a speedy type of wide receiver that would go well with their young, strong-armed rookie quarterback. They could draft a slot type. They could do both. And I think at corner, they could do the same, an outside long linear corner and more of a twitched up, slot type corner. So they could go a number of directions, I think, with all those positions. And I would add edge rusher probably to that as something that they could add some depth to as well.
Yeah, I'm with you for sure on that. I mean, corner with a absolute bullet next to it. I think that's the next pick here. And you're right. If Asante Samuel Jr. is there, that's got to be the guy, in my opinion. I mean, it just makes too much sense. I watched him at Florida State, loved what I saw. I feel that guy can really be a difference maker.
Yeah, and the only reason he's still around is probably because of the size, only about 5'10", 180 something pounds, but he plays bigger. But the Philadelphia Eagles are picking in front of the Niners, and that's where his dad used to play. So, and they've had trouble finding corners since his dad played. So I could see them snagging Asante Samuel before the 49ers have a chance. But corner is absolutely the number one need on the board. I think multiple picks, and I don't think they can wait too long on a corner.
And you know what? Before we get out of here, guys, I have to ask you both, because before when the Niners moved up and we started doing all of our research and Trey Lance was just leaping off the board, the one thing I looked at with him, and I just go, why the hell is he in North Dakota State? And I really couldn't find an answer aside from the fact that he comes from a small town in Minnesota. And, I just couldn't find an answer that really appeased me. Did you guys come up with anything? Because I'm just still wondering why a talent like this goes to North Dakota State.
No, I haven't heard anything about it. And that's why he ended up in North Dakota State. And there were some D1 schools that wanted to play outside linebacker, wanted to play receiver, that wanted to play maybe tight end or something like that. But he was a quarterback, and the tools he had, I don't know what these recruiting folks are looking at when you, I don't care how big of a town he came from. When you see his size and athleticism and his arm, unless his arm made some crazy strides over the last 2 years or the last 3 years from 2018 to 2019 or something like that, I have no idea. But he had a cannon of an arm. How could you see that player and think, no, I want him to change positions? Because he's prototype for a quarterback. He fits the quarterback prototype much more than he fits any of those other positions prototypes. And so I have no idea why he didn't get the opportunity, especially for his home state, University of Minnesota Golden Gophers. I don't know why he didn't get an opportunity to play quarterback, because they wanted him to play another position, even though they did recruit him.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes simply talent just gets overlooked, and maybe you don't see that upside, or maybe he vastly improved. And I think that was even clear in hearing from Kyle Shanahan. It's one guy got better and they felt a lot more comfortable from what they saw in January to March. And we heard that his mechanics at least improved noticeably, which was another indication that this kid is ready to learn, to be a sponge and to get better in this NFL offense. I mean, if we're asking why we go to North Dakota State, I mean, they're champions, guys. They are one of the most winningest programs in college football.
In his pro day, he had a T-shirt that said QBU, because they're putting as many quarterbacks in the NFL as some of these other big-time D1 colleges. And the other thing is, I think it's a numbers game too with recruiting with quarterbacks, because everybody played quarterback in high school. They were all the best athletes on their team, and they played quarterback. And you see all these guys in all number of different positions that used to play quarterback in high school and had to change positions. So I think that's just really common. And a lot of big-time schools just have a depth chart set, and they don't have a lot of room. They can offer one player at quarterback, and they already have that spot offered to somebody who's come up through the ranks at a bigger school and been through bigger camps and just has a bigger name. So I think that was part of it as well, just a numbers game for Trey Lance being a quarterback coming out of high school.
Well, we are certainly looking forward to seeing Trey Lance do his thing. I thought my eyes were deceiving me when I saw this kid on tape, even Justin Fields. I mean, if you're not looking for a mobile quarterback in this NFL, I mean, I don't know what you're looking for, and you got it in San Francisco now.
Yeah, it jumps off the screen. They're so talented. The ceiling for Trey Lance and Justin Fields. And it's good to know, I think 49ers fans felt good about the process that actually led to the high upside players and not Mac Jones. I think that was part of it. When you see those guys play, you're like, how could you not want one of those right on your team? And I think that's a big part of it. So yeah, really exciting times for the 49ers. And we'll see if his character combined with the coaching ability of Kyle Shanahan can get Trey Lance to scrape his head on that immense ceiling.
Well, that is our friend Brian Peacock from the Locked On 49ers podcast, your daily source for all things Niners. Be sure to subscribe, check them out, and of course, stay tuned with us here in Sacramento. If you live in the area, we've got the NFL draft continuing on ABC 10. We will see you next time, and we'll get you caught up on everything Niners related as we prepare for the 2021 campaign.